Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Welcome to Learning to Glow. I'm so happy that you are here with me today. I have an incredible episode to share with you. Our guest is Grace Blacksea. She is the founder of Quench Collective, a community of modern leaders and business owners, which I am a part of. We met back in 2020, and I instantly was a fan of everything Grace stood for. Her support and knowledge with growing a business made the biggest impact with my brand and my sanity. She's amazing. Today, Grace shares her story of coming from the corporate world and her addiction to busyness. We talk a lot about this, and I related to a lot of what she said. We talk about life as a new mom and the joys and challenges that she encountered, including dealing with postpartum anxiety, depression, and OCD. She shares so many amazing nuggets of wisdom with seeking help and allowing ourselves to be supported. We discuss the shame and stigma when it comes to asking for help and when dealing with mental health concerns. That really holds people back from getting the help that they need. We even touch upon nightly rituals. We talk about self-care and what she calls giving your soul a hug. There is so much more in this episode I haven't mentioned as well. You have to just stick around and listen. Grace is so lovely. She's so wise, eloquent, and I knew before I even pushed record how much I would love our conversation. I know you will too. You can follow Grace's personal journey on Instagram at Grace Blacksea and her wonderful community of business leaders at Quench.Collective, which I will link all of this in the show notes. Here is Grace. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Learning to Glow podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Grace. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to see you. And I'm also just excited to chat today.
I'm so excited to see you as well. We haven't seen each other in a while. We actually met in 2020, and I remember reaching out to you on Instagram, and we both lived locally, like next to each other. And I was like, we had just been going back and forth, and we decided to meet for a matcha walk date on the beach. And I was like, okay, that's it. This woman is my kind of people. So please, if you wouldn't mind, please share a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and a little bit about your background and all of that good stuff.
That day, I'll never forget it. That was so much fun. And I would say that is my love language, long walks along the beach with matcha. It really is that kind of stereotypical, just deep connection. And so it was just, sometimes you have those moments and you're like, you're my people. I heard this term recently I was listening to Tracy Ellis Ross speak, and she was talking about just a lot of different things like relationships. And she was talking about this theory of cauldron sisters and how it's the theory of just like being, I'm using air quotes, cut from the same cloth. And so I feel like it's like your soul like recognizes in another soul when you're just meant to be in someone's world. And so meeting you was just such a delight. Like it was just being around you as this big hug with just who you are and how you speak and your curly, beautiful hair. Like it's just so comforting and warm. So anyways, it was just such a great experience. And it's just so beautiful that we've been able to keep this relationship. That's just kind of it. Like who I am is a natural connector. I like to say I connect people and the dots. And so that is something that's really important to me. I guess my more kind of officialized of who I am is I am a mother. I'm a new mother. I have an almost 1-year-old. And I also am the founder and head of community of our community. I want to say ours because you're in it, Jess, of Quench Collective. And Quench is really all about giving modern leaders, so intrapreneurs where you are perhaps a leader working inside of a business, but you're really interested in that development development of your own skills and leadership, whatever that may be. And also for entrepreneurs. So people who own their own businesses, who are small business owners, who are thinking about it, whatever it may be. And what we really believe in doing is helping to fill those people up with tools and resources. We believe that there is your business or your career. And then we also believe there is the business of you. There is this really double-sided thing. And I think I'll probably have a story around burnout, whatever that looks like, whether it's in parenthood, whether it's in career, whether it's in just every day around, enter thing here, whatever that looks like. And in creating Quench it's almost been 8 years. It was all about how can we bring people together to give them what they need to really navigate this world. And it's a completely different ball game than what our parents dealt with or what even our aunts and uncles. Like it's such a unique space. And I really believe that community is the place where we can do a lot of exploration, a lot of healing, a lot of connecting. And yeah, we were talking about this earlier, but I was in the corporate world for a long time. And right before I exited, I was riddled with anxiety. I didn't know what was going on with me. I started to have all these physical kind of breakdowns in my body. And talking with my wonderful therapist, I realized that I had an addiction and it was to busyness. It was just, that's where I thought that you became important. And that's where I thought that you really made a name for yourself, and how you got to the top is the busier that you were, it meant the harder that you worked. When I'm sure everyone's rolling their eyes because realizing that actually is not it. However, in our society, and I think more specifically as women, we have this kind of call to just stay busy, keep it moving, keep it going. Because when we slow down, we start to feel things. And that's not always super duper comfortable. And sure, maybe you can think about some people in your life that are perhaps a little bit more naturally energetic, if you will. That person's always, if the word that comes to mind is like perhaps buzzing. But I think that in starting this business, what I was able to do was starting to heal a lot of what was going on in my relationship to self, and really quench that thirst, if you will, quite literally, of what I needed and becoming who I wanted to be as a leader. So all in all, it's this really round way of finding out who I am through the lens really of community, and doing it alongside community has been really incredible.
It is. And I think that's part of the reason why Quench became so successful, because just speaking for me, I work alone. I create alone. And at the time that I'd met you, I was just by myself doing everything without anybody to bounce ideas off of. Or not only that, but just like I lacked community 100%. And I think that's something that I really cherished about working in a group program with other women, because, and I would joke with you, I would say, we would talk on Voxer and I would say, I'm sorry, but this sounds like more of a therapy session than a business call. Sorry. Because there are so many things that come up as a business owner that make you feel some sort of way, right? Like I maybe self-doubt, or definitely self-doubt. Sorry, not maybe. Of, am I doing the right thing? Am I good enough? Like these are really big questions, very deep emotions that come up when you are trying to do this. And if you're trying to navigate it alone, it is so much harder.
So much harder. The loneliness can get to you more than you. And you can spend your entire day. Sometimes I've been in that same position where it's 5 p.m. and I'm like, all I did today was just question myself. I just sat here and went around in my mind. And the moment I actually took the time to text a friend or call someone or whatever it may be and ask them a question and really work it through was when I was able to really move the needle. So you're not alone, and nobody is in that. It's pretty wild what we can do when we're left to our own devices sometimes. And so, yeah, being in a group setting or just having that community to reach out to, knowing that no question is a silly question, knowing that you can get vulnerable, knowing that you have a brave space where you can feel safe in asking questions that might be like, this is probably a business 101 question, but I've got this, or, hey, I've got this question about motherhood, or, hey, I've got this question about relationships, or whatever it may be. We aren't just one thing, right? We are not just business owners. We're not just moms. We are all of these layers. Like we are such multifaceted human beings. And I think that to say that we can only touch one side of that in community is silly because we can't do that. Like everything is connected. And if you're having a hard day in motherhood, it's absolutely going to impact your business. It just is. Business is personal, period. Your career, when I say business, career, and if you're a business owner, it is more difficult. It is really hard. And people sometimes will say, I'm really great at compartmentalizing. And that is awesome. And I don't think there also is anything wrong with being a feeler in the sense of I had a tough day. I had a tough parenting morning, and it did make my afternoon more difficult in that meeting or in that thing or whatever it may be. You're human, like it happens. And so being able to just be able to say something saying, hey, Jess, oh my gosh, I didn't sleep last night. I didn't whatever, like I need some X, Y, and Z to get through the day. I'm sure you would have words of wisdom for me and it would make me feel better. And it probably would help me get through that meeting. So I just think it is important that we at least practice being in support and asking for support.
Absolutely. I have a few questions, but the first thing I want to touch upon before I forget is the busyness piece that you mentioned, because this is something that I think is really common with moms, but I think I really relate to you on that because it's something that I felt my entire life. And I also think like in the last couple of years, I had this epiphany of where it came from. To sit around in my house growing up, that was not acceptable, right? Like that was very lazy. And there have been times in my life and with my husband where it's a Saturday. There couldn't be a more perfect time for rest, say, at a particular day. And I'm just like, okay, it's like I'm searching.
Yeah.
I can feel myself searching. Well, what needs to be done? What's on my list? And I feel like that has definitely gone back to like how I was raised and what you said. The more we do, the more we are valued and in so many different ways. And trying to, if this conversation is definitely going to make my husband chuckle because he is not this way. Like he has no problem taking a nap on the couch where I'd be like, what? And I'm working on that because a nap. So I definitely feel like that is something that can be very unhealthy because it's like, where's that time? Where's that wiggle room to care for yourself? How are you on that now? What is your, if you feel those feelings coming up, because I can, from experience, it's like a feeling that comes up where then I act. What do you do now after dealing with being like that and discovering you're like that and not wanting to be like that all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I so deeply resonate. It's like you're almost looking around. Do I just need to make a mess of something so I can clean it up? Or do I need to reorganize that drawer? Or like, should I order something for Christmas in July? It's just like you start to, there is something around very similarly. In my house, it was the same way that you were lazy if you were laying around. There was always something to do. And it has been such a hard practice. Every single day, I have to so intentionally practice rest and more specifically restoration in my life. That when we're tired, we sleep. We don't always just push through it. In some cases, absolutely, we have to. We've got a deadline on something or whatever it may be. But I would say the thing that I've really had to practice is the piece and part of having compassion for myself when those things show up, because what I realize is that, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here laying on the couch and all I'm doing is sending myself down this like hallway in my mind of just shame. Oh my gosh, you're so lazy. You're so lazy. You're not getting anything done. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. You're just starting to should all over yourself. And it's like the opposite of restful. It's not restful at all because mentally and emotionally, I'm just beating myself up over it. That's not what I want to do. Similarly, my partner he could sleep anywhere at any time. Napping, absolutely. Sure. Didn't even think twice about it. I just fell asleep. It was no big deal. I'm like, how? Teach me your ways. And I will say, since becoming a parent, I'm actually able to nap now, which maybe that just comes from the sleep deprivation. I don't really know. But even the whole saying, sleep when the baby sleeps, who's going to do the laundry and who's going to do the dishes and who's going to do all these things? If I am actively saying, okay, yes, I'm going to go lay down. That means that when my child's awake, I'm taking, this is at least I think what our mind tells us, I'm taking away this intentional time that I could be spending with them. We can't win. There is not a way to win in this situation. So I think it's about truly just finding the compassion for yourself, that like almost speaking to, I've been trying this thing. I know that this was by way of my therapist, but I know we've all heard of like inner child work. And in that kind of journey with myself, I've been talking to my younger self, whether it's like in my journal or in my head, or sometimes even out loud, like, it's okay, Grace. Sit down and relax. What do you want to do right now? If we have an hour before we have to leave the house, what feels good to you right now? Is it curling up on the couch and reading a book? Is it doing something creative? Is it going for a walk? Is it listening to a podcast? Is it nothing at all? Is it sitting in silence and just, I think as parents, we're also so overstimulated, overtouched, over everything all the time, that sitting in silence is the weirdest thing in the world, but also I think so necessary to reset our nervous system. I don't think silence is the only thing that does that. It's been now it's this re-exploration since becoming a mom that I'm having to figure out, because what does that look like? What does rest look like for me now? Because these windows are so much shorter of when I actually am able to do that. I don't have all the time in the world like I maybe used to. I didn't have all the time in the world back then, but it seems like that. So I think first and foremost, having compassion for self, asking myself, what does she need? What does Grace need? What does little Jess need in this moment? And how can we maybe reprogram or rewire when we were told, get up and go do something, go outside, help me with the laundry, you have chores, whatever it may be, to we're okay and we are safe and not in shame if we're just sitting here enjoying ourselves. And it's not lazy, and it's not this, like, that reprogramming and rewiring, I swear I will be on my deathbed still doing it. It is so deep within us, I think. So it's a practice every single day. I think we have to work towards it. And I think it's probably even a defining of what that means to us. What am I going to do when those feelings come up? I feel like you have to have a plan for it so that it isn't like panic mode and then sends your nervous system into overdrive, and then the dominoes fall from there.
I love the idea of having a plan for it, especially if you have this deep set wiring with it,
Yeah.
and knowing and having that compassion piece too. That's so key. And this is a good time to ask you about, how has motherhood been for the
Yeah.
past year? What challenges
Yeah.
have you had? And
Yeah.
update us on that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's been the most wild journey. I was saying to you before, it feels like this tornado or blunder of emotions, right? It feels like the longest year of the life, the shortest year of my life. How is this even possible? How am I coming up on a first birthday? Oh my gosh, I made it. I'm still here. I'm still standing. This is wild. I never thought I'd be able to walk around the block and not have my body hurt anymore. There's so many layers to what is, I really believe, this wild year of both healing your body and also getting to know this new identity that is yourself, and getting to know a completely different human. I will also add in the layer of, I feel like my marriage just blew up in this different way. And I don't mean blow up necessarily in a negative way. It was just like we had to relearn all of these ways to communicate with each other and what we needed and what we wanted. And it was just, a lot of people don't talk about that, like what it does to the partnership. It's all these things. Like I'm thinking, like, again, buckets or categories where it's like relationship with self, your body, your well-being. I also struggle with really early on, was able to pinpoint it, which I'm so grateful for because I was able to get help, but I am still dealing with postpartum depression, anxiety, and OCD. And it's something that, gosh, I've talked to so many mothers about since being diagnosed with it. And it's just, there is just so much shame around it. I can't even believe it. And it just makes me so sad because there's like this belief that we have to white knuckle through this intense emotional, in some cases, however someone wants to describe it, whether it's pain or, I don't know, uprooting, like kind of transformation that you're experiencing. It's not easy. There is so much grief in motherhood, and there's so much good. There's both. And I think that we really learn our edge. We find out where our edge is in motherhood. I feel like we also find out the duality of what's possible for us, for like what we're made of, what's possible for us, where all of a sudden I have no time in the world. Again, I'm using air quotes where it feels like that. And then all of a sudden I want to make the most expansive decision I've ever made in my business. It's like, where did that come from? I think that we just did something so physical, i.e., have this child, or even if you're an adoptive parent, whatever it is, like having a baby is a big deal. And it's just, I don't think that we give ourselves enough time to really experience that transformation. It's all about how quickly are we going to get back to work? And to be honest, I was like, I don't necessarily want to be a stay-at-home parent. I had a stay-at-home parent, and that was the biggest, most incredible blessing and privilege. And I also thought to myself, like, I don't think that's for me. And now coming up in the first year, I'm like, oh my gosh, this went by so fast. I'm going to miss this if I don't slow down a little bit or adjust things within my work and in my business. I'm going to miss these moments that I have wanted to see and be a part of so badly. There are so many feelings packed into one. And again, like back to the compassion thing, I just don't think that we have enough compassion for ourselves. And after 6 weeks, the 6 weeks, they tell you can start to move your body again and do all these things. And I'm just like, dream on. There is no way. I was still in so much physical pain. I was still in so much, like, there was just, even now at a year, I'm starting to really feel like myself. And I don't think it's ever about feeling like how we used to feel, because we're never going to be that person again. That person is, I think they're there just in the background, but we are new. Just like we gave birth, or where there was birth, there was also rebirth of us. And so it is just, I guess, to put it all in a summary, it has been one of the most difficult years of my life. It has also been some of just the most rewarding and also eye-opening experiences. Ultimately, I'm so grateful for it. And also, I'm really grateful that I got the medical and mental health support that I needed early on, because I can't imagine having had to white knuckle through that experience longer than I needed to. I think that aided in the kind of healing and transformation of it faster and stronger.
Kudos to you for taking that action and getting help, because I know there's probably a lot of people that have been through this that didn't,
Yes.
or they waited too long and they did go through that white knuckling stage. What would you say to someone that I feel like this goes beyond postpartum depression, right? Like, what would you say to somebody who's struggling, or I know this is a side note, or somebody that's loved one is struggling? Like, it's sometimes for some people, as you mentioned, stigma before, find it very difficult to seek that out. Or maybe I should just keep going, power through. I'm okay. Like, I'll be okay, or whatever. What can you say to that person? Because I do feel like you had mentioned, like, there is this pressure, right, to get back to work, to get back to, let's talk about the bounce back. You need your body. Like, we were, this was definitely me. Like, I was at baby boot camp way too early.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to get this weight off. Like, really, why was that even a thought in my head at that time? There were so many other things that were so crucial at that time that were so much more important. But I know I just asked you a lot of things, but I feel like there is a pressure, there is an expectation. And a lot of times, if we can't like block that noise out, we can get really sucked up into that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with your initial, I will say, first and foremost, as a non-mental health professional, seek out help without question. And I also know, I will say, from having been in that kind of deep, dark hole, that taking a step like that it feels like light years away. Like just calling to find affordable therapy and or something that's covered by insurance and or whatever it may be. I mean, there's so many factors keeping us from getting help, which is just wild. Just, it should not be that way. Period. End of story. It just shouldn't be. I think that this is also why in the day to day, it's so important that we practice asking for support, just whether it's in community, amongst friends, amongst family, because when we do get into those darker, scarier moments of our world, going through whatever we're experiencing, it becomes that much more difficult to ask for help, because we're not just, if for many, asking for help is an admission of failure. which we know that to not be true. That's factually untrue, right? And so sometimes when we are experiencing, for me, my anxiety runs rampant, right? I'm in this hole of depression. My anxiety runs rampant. My OCD is just through the roof. Everything is just, again, that domino effect is just, oh gosh, it's just amplified to the max, right? For me to stop long enough to say, I'm not okay, I need support, it's the hardest thing in the world sometimes. In fact, the thing that helped me get support, I've dealt with anxiety and depression in the past, but with this specific experience, it was that I kept feeling like that I wasn't present in this experience with my son. And that is what I didn't like. That was like the overarching feeling. I don't like this. I feel like I'm here, but like I'm not all here. I feel like I'm just hovering above it all, not to mention I'm sleep deprived and all these other things, like factors that are happening. And so that was like, okay, I want to do anything I can so I can be all the way here, all the way here. I even have a lot of shame that I'm trying to work through from early days, because I feel like I look back at photos and I'm like, I barely even remember that. I feel like I wasn't there. It's this weird, hazy feeling of just, what's going on here? What happened? Where was I? And I think that going with what you know to be true, and I know, again, sometimes when we have that anxiety brain talking to us or whatever it may be, that's important. So we know, if you're listening to this right now and you are going through something, asking for support absolutely is not an admission of failure. It is actually nothing but asking for support, period. And so what does, for you, the person who is experiencing whatever it may be, what does just one step ahead look like? Not 2 steps, not 10 steps, not 20 steps, just one step. How can you just carve out one thing right now today, if it's the one and only thing that you do? And I think inching your way forward like that, because I feel like, again, in our society, and especially with women, we are typically, for the most part, born these naturally very high achieving people, and we're moving forward and we're doing what we're doing. And so when we're not able to jump straight ahead and to the ending, if you will, and just feel better, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to sit here because this is, I don't know if I want to say it's easier, but I'm here. I'm just already here. And also, when you can see, I feel like something with anxiety and depression too, is that when you're in a hole, you can see maybe the light, but the light is really far away. And that's scary to be making that trek towards it. Or you're like, I am just so emotionally exhausted. I don't think I have the strength to move towards it. But the thing that we know to be true is that there are so many professionals, friends, support, etc., that can just help to inch us along. For me personally, that was medication. That's not the answer for everybody, but I was trying to pull on all of my daily things that I do to manage my anxiety, right? So meditation and breathing and journaling and walking and all these things. And I was doing them. I was doing them all, and nothing was working. I couldn't access those tools for my well-being because I was so in the depth of it. They were doing nothing for me. It was having like no wheels were turning whatsoever. When I was able to go on medication, it was able to bring me to the level where I could start to do those things again, and they actually were helping. And that's what I mean about, we don't have to suffer, right? And again, the answer is not always medication. Sometimes there are different therapies and modalities, et cetera, et cetera. That is definitely something to talk to your mental health professional about. But for me, that's what worked. And I have no shame about that. And I don't think anybody should. I think that is something that's so important. That doesn't make me less of a woman. It doesn't make me less of a mom. It doesn't make me less of a human. It actually just makes me human, period. And as far as like caretakers, I love that you brought that up, because I think that's such a big thing. I felt like such a burden on my husband. Gosh, like I could see how my mental health was wearing him down. And I will say that I think that making sure that your support system has a support system is also important, right? Whether that is the outlet for them, whether that is the hobby, the activity, the whatever it may be, all the way to the friend who comes over and just hangs out or takes the person out or does whatever. It is so important because there can be like that secondary effect of when someone that you love is experiencing these things. We never want to see the people that we love in any sort of physical or emotional pain. And so it can be really difficult for them. So I think it's important that we don't deflect healing ourselves and just focusing on them, but also encouraging them to have their own level of whatever that looks like, maintaining their well-being, whether again, it's activity, whether it is wellness, whether it is self-care, like what does that look like? I think it's the only way for it to be sustainable.
Such a good point to remember your partner and having them know that they need support as well. They're in this too. And I love that as a point. And also, thank you for sharing about the medication because, and the shame, like that should not be there, but that is for so many. And so it's such a great reminder. When I first started my wellness journey, I had already been in the skincare industry for years, working on client skin and as an educator for multiple skincare brands. When I learned about how the toxins in our personal care and beauty products could have a negative impact on our health, I knew I needed to make a change. I was used to the result-driven products that I was working with, and I was not happy with the natural products on the market at that time. Although they were safer and cleaner, they did not meet my expectations for results. I created Simply Just Skincare to deliver the results my clients demanded from their products while using natural, toxin-free ingredients. You can check out my clients' results and reviews on my website, simplyjustskincare.com. In 30 days, my clients have reported more hydrated skin, less appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, and more of an overall glow. Our top sellers include our Repair Toner, our Hydrating Undo Serum with hyaluronic acid, and more. I am offering my listeners 20% off their first order with code PODCAST. Check it out in the link in my show notes to get glowing today. Another thing that you had mentioned when you're going through this difficult challenge of, and I do suffer with anxiety, so I can relate to that. And it didn't happen until after kids. I've been anxious, but full on anxiety wasn't there before kids. And in those early months, did you have support? Did you like community? Like we talked about in the beginning, did you have people that you could talk to? I remember being a new mom and all of my friends were really in different life stages. They were different times in their motherhood, or they hadn't had children. And I remember it was like a switch that went off at 6 months when my son was 6 months. And I was like, damn, like I am alone here. This feels super lonely. And I am the type of person who I do like to be surrounded by people. I am extroverted, and it was tough. And I recognized it. And I was like online that day searching mom groups. And it was the best thing I ever did. Some of my very best friends are from that group. And that was almost 13 years ago. It was like something that I really desperately needed. I needed to say, what the heck do I do with this situation? Or what food is, I needed somebody to talk to. And I wanted somebody to hang out with and be there for me, because that was something that I really felt a hole in that time in my life. So did you have someone, did you have a group? Did you have to support you in that way?
Yeah. I wanted to mention too, you know how you said earlier, like I was at baby boot camp way too early. I will also say that there is a sense, right? Like you were maybe there to quote work out, but you also probably had this overwhelming sense of community. They're like, wow, there are other people. Cause you do go through those early stages where you're like, there's other people in this world. I didn't realize I haven't left the house for 15 days. You need those moments. That is such a seriously important recipe. It's critical to our mental health, connection, and community. It is, we know that to be true, right? All the data shows us that is absolutely a huge piece of the puzzle. And so there was a lot of good things probably helping for your brain and for your body. Of course, this overwhelming message in our society, bounce back culture, but you're probably doing so much good for yourself than you even realize. But yes, I feel so grateful that I was 35 when I had my son. And so I will say, in retrospect, I was on the later end of my friends have been having children for the past 10 years plus. So I have been around, I come from a big family. I've been around children and kids for a long time. And so knew a lot of moms, but there is something different. My girlfriend who was a mom 10 years ago, maybe she's not the very first person I reach out to. I maybe reach out to a friend who had a baby 6 months before me or 2 years before me or something like that. We have so many things when I'm like, hey, what did you do about these diapers? Or hey, is your kid waking up like this? Because there's so many new things coming out so often. Yes, I was lucky enough to have a few really great mom friends that I felt totally comfortable texting in the middle of the night, sending a really rambly voice memo when I was completely sleep deprived and I knew they would be able to cut through the noise and hear my questions or concerns or whatever I was doing. And I would also, even on social media, if I didn't even maybe necessarily know a person, but I identified with their experience and would say, hey, I know that you said you use this thing. How did it work for you? And it is incredible, the community that who moms are in community. You may not even know the person. You're like, I got you. Let me help you. For example, I exclusively pumped for 7 months, and that was a whole experience in and of itself. And after the fact, we are still giving my son formula. He had a dairy allergy, so we use goat's milk formula, right? There's this whole blender and world of things like that. And we had a shortage on our formula. And one day there was no formula left and we didn't know what to do, right? He has this allergy. We can't just run to the store. It has to get imported from the EU. It's this whole thing. I live in San Diego. I found within 1 hour of sending a text message, someone in Orange County who had a box of formula that they gave me and they got to me by the end of the day. It is incredible, the power of mothers. And no questions were asked. Absolutely none, right? Not why is she formula feeding or why is she not doing this? People were offering up their breast milk to me. Like that, what an incredible thing. And that's what I mean by allow yourself to be supported. And you may find that, oh, sure, I walked into this support group and found out that maybe these aren't my people. And that's okay. We sometimes have to have that trial and error. Before the fact too, my husband and I both took some like early parenting classes, and that was really special. And we befriended some people in that arena, friends of mine, again, who were just parents. So wherever you can find the support, take it. Like that, I think that's just so important. And I love that you just realized, I hate that you would experience the loneliness to know I don't want to be lonely anymore. I want to find my people. But that's just it. I will even say there's been a few times in my neighborhood, I've chased down people that I just saw with strollers. They could have had a 5-year-old child in that stroller, but I was like, hey, hi, I'm a mom. It looks like you're a mom too. Let's be friends. And I've made 2 friends that way. And it's been really lovely. And so they're my walking buddies. Especially on the days that I just need to get out of the house but can't get myself in the car. So those things are important. And there are resources truly, especially with our phones these days, like at our fingertips. And if that is something that someone's struggling with, and they are listening to this, reach out to Jess, ask her. I'm sure she'd be happy to, I know I would too, connect you with a friend or a mom or whatever it may be. I think some of the best friendships happen that way too.
I know. And I think moms are so good at sharing what they know. They want to. They've been there. They've been desperate for somebody to do that on another end of it. And it's like I had this, we're coming up to new challenges when your kids get older, right? You know, there's different challenges, and there's some things are easier and some things are harder. And I had a question when it came to my son and his sports. And I don't come from a sports background. My husband doesn't. My son was just born very eager, like athletic, and he wants to play. And we're just like, oh, okay, let's support this. But also, what the heck is going on here? So I reached out to a friend of a friend and was like, I'm struggling with this decision. You don't know who I am at all. And here's my questions. And this woman sent me, it felt like pages of text. And I was just like, wow, like we're all so busy. It's summer. And she took the time to really explain everything and give me some support. And she doesn't even know who I am. And I just feel, of course, and I would do the same because that's just our nature. We want to help each other out. We know how hard it is. And even though it's not always talked about. It's especially with social media, right? We're looking online and we're like, dang, like that mom looks amazing. She
Yeah.
has it together. Her kids are doing amazing. And you're like, whoa, am I doing enough? Am I making the cut here? Am I a good enough mom? And it's very easy to get fooled by those sort of social media images
Oh my
and to
gosh.
make
Yeah.
yourself, it can make you feel terrible about yourself.
Isn't it wild that can happen? I was just playing with my son the other day on the floor, and it just seemed like not a lot of the current toys I maybe had on rotation were really doing it. And I went down, I found myself, I had to shake myself and say, stop. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, am I doing this wrong? He must like, I think I've got the wrong toys for him. He doesn't like these. Like, I see all these other people playing on Instagram and they're like, their kids seem so into it. And but whoa, I had to just stop myself because that is just not true. We see a fraction of what is real. And the reality is that, yeah, a toy keeps a kid interested sometimes for 5 seconds. And that's what it's all about. And then that's why. Then we go outside and try this. And then we go for a walk and we do that. No wonder we're all so exhausted at night as parents. It's like we are constantly doing things. Children don't have very huge attention spans. And they are in such rapid development and discovery. And it's just, there's nothing wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's just today, that wasn't the toy that he liked. That doesn't mean that I have to go out and throw all the toys away and find the new ones and whatever it may be. But I also think there could be a discussion around these kids who develop so quickly. I can ask my non-judgmental friends when saying something like, hey, I'm noticing that these toys aren't really interesting anymore. What did your kid play with when they were a year old? And they may say all the things that I'm using, or they may say something that I never even knew about. And I can make then the decision if I want to add that toy to the pile or not. So I think it's good to be like an information gatherer, but we don't, again, back to the shame thing, we don't have to put ourselves down the shame spiral that I'm not enough, it's not right, I'm not doing the thing right. It's our kids really only need like us and each other, like that family, I think, unit. They don't really need anything else. All this stuff is just extra around us. So it's pretty wild to see. And yeah, I would imagine with, especially as your kiddos are getting older, it's a whole different set of things in your world.
Yeah, and then it's new again. And yeah,
Exactly.
and I think some of that is when we not even consciously compare ourselves and seeing what other people are doing. A lot of times you have to bring it back to what is right for my family, what's the best for our situation. It's not just what's best for, honestly, even at 13, people are already thinking about college, sports, and
Oh
all these.
yeah.
And it's, let's just remember and remind ourselves we have to do what's best for us as a family. And that
Yes.
may look really different than what most of the people are doing around you. And it's really hard to do something different
Yep.
because you think this is wrong because everybody's doing it this way. And I had this come up in a lot of different ways as a mom. I gave birth at home, and I can't tell you the amount of people who said that I was crazy, that it was dangerous, that the amount of feedback. And I was confident because it was my second and my first was in the hospital. I knew me, I knew my body, and I was confident by then. But if that was my first, I think I would have been like, maybe I am wrong for doing this. I couldn't have been more right, by the way. Like
Oh, of course.
it
Yeah.
was the perfect, like, best experience of my entire life, really.
Yeah.
So I was right. But when we see a group going one way as with parenting, especially because we take it so seriously, and I want to make sure I do all the things the best I
Yeah.
can in the right way, quote unquote, that it feels like a lot of pressure, and it feels like mistakes could be like a big deal and can blow that up in my head a lot. But I
Yeah.
feel like really going back to, this is our decision, this is our
Yes.
family. Not every family is going to have the same decision making process, and to go from there.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Someone said to me earlier on when I was really putting myself through the ringer of, oh gosh, breastfeeding isn't working. And then I went to exclusively pumping, and oh my gosh, this is like tearing my world apart. Like it's so time consuming, and like it was just so much. And there was a lot of different comments I got out there for sure. And I'll never forget, someone said to me, you're doing great. And as long as you are making your decision around what is best for your family and not just your baby, then
Mm,
that's the right decision.
I
And
love that.
oh my gosh, that totally changed the game for me because it is true. It's even lactation consultant will say to you, it's your feeding has to work for the entire family, not just for the baby. Because what's best for the baby is what's best for the entire family, and vice versa. It really is like that family unit. So there's so many pieces to that, and I love to hear you say that. Like us being in these different stages of motherhood, it's like I'm hearing in early motherhood, you are like this seasoned mother, and I just feel it's such wisdom because to take that through and to know that I think that we always try to say we always people always strive to want to have like quote normal kids. They're a normal kid. That's a normal thing. It's normal. It's normal. It's normal. And when we do break out of that barrier of kind of doing things differently, it does make us feel other. It makes us feel like I'm doing it wrong. I'm questioning myself. And to your point, it's why you have to constantly go back to your values and your family and your why and stick to that. And it takes so much strength and so much camaraderie, I think, within the family too, because you're going to constantly have people telling you that you're wrong, which is horrible. I can't believe that like, people actually do that, but they do.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it just goes back to sticking to that. And I think it's, again, like I'm bowing down to that wisdom right now. It is so good.
It's funny because my husband and I joke because we've had a lot of challenges as parents, and
Yeah.
we joke that we don't ever do things the easy way. And that's because we know what's right for us. And that's actually we've never been stronger we call each other we're a team.
Oh yeah.
And every time we've had a big challenge, and we've had some really big challenges with our kids, we come out the other side so much stronger because we got through it, and we
Yeah.
really are good at leaning into each other. When I could have a bad day one day and he's there for me, his day is bad, I can be there for him. And it's just like this way of becoming stronger as a team, as a couple. Parenting has done that for us, which is, we're really lucky that
Yeah.
we have been able to navigate it like that. But, and knowing like knowing your own needs too, right? Knowing I need this, and to be able to say it. And that's something that I wanted to ask you about too, because we are moms with less time than we had before, than you
Yeah.
had a year ago. What are some ways that you take care of yourself? And self-care and wellness, they're buzzwords, but what are ways that we can, it's not always just go get a pedicure. I actually hate getting pedicures. I hate that
Me
advice.
too.
I'm always like,
Me too.
that's the opposite of self-care for me. I have to do it because my feet need it. But what
Yes.
are some actual ways that you feel
Yeah.
cared for?
Yeah. I love this question because it is so different for everyone. And I hope that like people take inspiration from this, but also know that whatever feels good to you, like really is the thing that you need and that you're craving. And
So true.
it's different for me every day. Like sometimes it really is like today, I just need to go. I know I can make a matcha at home, but I need to go to the coffee shop and get the matcha and just sit for a minute and take a few sips and just be there. And sometimes that fills up my cup to where I need it to be. Other days I need that like really ooey gooey long fabulous dinner with a friend where we just talk until the restaurant closes down. There are so many different things. As you can see, I get filled up by others. That is part of who I am, my personality type, etc. I also will say that something that I have found in motherhood is how much time I need alone. I never needed this much alone time in my life. I was always really great at going from group situation to whatever it may be. And I just need to be alone, whether it is just like laying on that sunspot on my bed and reading 3 pages of a book or 30 pages of a book, whatever that looks like. It's just that fills up my soul sometimes in those ways. But my non-negotiable, I will say, is my nightly shower. There's something about it. I don't know what it is. It's just, I look forward to it all day long until I can just get in the shower. And I will admit, we don't save a lot of water around here. Like I take my 20-minute shower and it just feels so incredible. And I've really been able to do for myself is sometimes I'll even listen to a podcast, I'll turn on music, like whatever it is. Sometimes if I feel like my mind is a little bit too loud, it really helps to quiet down my mind. And everything from some nights it includes I'm going through the full blown like scrub, wash, and oil. And some nights I'm just going through like a hair mask, and other nights I'm just there. I'm just literally standing in the water because, oh my gosh, what did this day do? But it like restores my soul. And then that kind of became a ritual. And then the secondary ritual became when I got out of the shower. And Jess, you're part of this ritual. So taking care of my skin, something that I noticed that made me feel so great early on in motherhood was that if my skin felt quenched and it felt like if I had this sounds so crazy, but I was so just like dry and parched and exhausted and just, and it just felt gross. I just felt, like I just can't. I was not gross, but it just felt that way to me. I was just like, I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. And I wanted so badly to feel grounded in my skin, especially this new skin of who I was. Every night when I get out of the shower, I've made this pact with myself that no matter how tired I am, the skincare has to happen. Like it just has to, because with the domino effect of that, I wake up with my skin feeling good because I took the time to do it before I go to bed. Because so much, as you've taught me, like so much of that cell restoration happens at night. I do my face washing. I like to actually wash my face in the shower. That's like my thing that I love to do. I like really get in there and I use my sponge and the whole nine. When I get out, toner is like a never skipped, never ever. And then I always use I use two different serums. And then of course I use the Reboot of oil of yours that I just am absolutely obsessed with. I'm on like the monthly subscription. When I'm out of it, it's like my world stops turning. And I have this lip mask that I use as well. Like when my lips can feel like nice and I don't know, just nourished, that's so lovely. And when I get into bed, the feeling of when I get into bed like that versus when I get into bed just coming off of a wild day, it's completely different in the health of my sleep, in the health of like how much more quickly I fall asleep, just all of it. It's so wonderful. So if I can, no matter how bad my day has gone or what has happened, if I can make it into that shower and if I can do those things for myself, that probably all in all takes a total of 30 minutes, right? There is nothing else like that. And it just makes me feel so good. And sure, like I love a spa day. It just isn't able to happen as often. And so it's not like giving myself this spa effect. It's just like giving my soul a hug. It's just about taking care of me, of mom, of my 7-year-old self, my 17-year-old self, my 27-year-old self, and now, my 35-year-old self. It's just, there's something about that connection via our skin that I feel like is so special. It can be. It's not for everybody, but it can be, which is maybe why I also don't resonate with getting my nails done. That's not the thing that like restores me. It's always like a massage or a facial can do that to me, but it's always via body work of some kind. And I think that our skincare really is that. I feel like you are always so great with the gua sha and whatever you are talking about. It's such a reminder that it's skin deep. Like it goes so much deeper than that. So that's my that's my ritual. That's what's been going on lately.
Well, I'm a big fan of your ritual. I am too. And you can't see Grace's face, but it's glowing, so it's working. Yeah, and it's true. I just had a really amazing podcast released yesterday that was about morning routines. And of course, we talked about what do you do at night? It has such a big component. And if you're going to get in and feel more rested and get better quality sleep, especially when you have a baby, that is the more the better. That Absolutely. Is part of the problem with being a new mom, of just that lack of sleep and how that affects everything in such a negative way. So I could talk to you all day, but I don't want to keep you all day. Please tell people where they can find you and share how we can find you.
Of course. Yeah. So if you want to follow along on my personal journey, feel free. I'm over at Grace Blacksea, just all spelled out one word. And if you also want to see what's going on the business side of things, you can follow us over at Quench.collective, pretty much on all the different platforms. So that will get you to where you want to be.
And I'll link all that in the show notes as well. But I'm just so grateful that you were able to come and share your story and all of your wisdom. You are just an amazing, incredible person. I'm very blessed to call a friend. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so wonderful. I can't wait to listen to that episode that you just talked about morning routine, because I think I've got some time now where I can start to layer that in, and that's going to feel so good. So thank you for having me. I'm so grateful for you, friend.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.